any time. With this, I would like to request my director, Kalanya Waterslake, Director of Sustainability at William & Mary, would request you to kickstart with sharing about the VASHE and the executive audit. Over to you, Kalanya.
Thanks, Anusha. Thanks for the introduction and for everyone attending today. So I'm the University Sustainability Director here at William & Mary, as well as a longtime member and recent co-chair of the Virginia Sustainability in Higher Education Network, known as VASHE. VASHE is a network of sustainability professionals working in higher education across the Commonwealth of Virginia, and it provides opportunities to network, share best practices, resources, and lessons learned, and really collaborate across a wide range of sustainability initiatives. With the advent of Executive Order 77, VASHE has proven to be a great tool for sustainability faculty, staff, and champions alike at our institutions. And today's panel is a good example of this. For many of those here, Executive Order 77 is certainly not the first time that single-use plastics has been discussed. And this order has only added impetus to the direction many of our institutions were already headed. It's also provided some common timelines and goals across the state, which is why we are talking about bin liner reduction strategies today. So from the VASHE Network, thank you for attending. I'm going to hand this back to Anusha.
Thank you, Kalanya. So I would like to quickly introduce all the panel members from the respective universities. I hope you all could able to see the screen right now, which is the right one. So Donnie Addison, the Solid Waste Operation Manager from the University of Oregon. Kevin Brem, Waste and Recycling Supervisor from George Mason University. Raleigh, Director of Operation from the University of Virginia. Stephen Sidney, Resource Recovery Supervisor from Southern Maine. Thank you all the panel members for signing up, and appreciate for sharing all your insights, which would be a valuable and open discussion to share some best practices, which will be a long-term sustainable perspective. With this, I would request Donnie to kickstart to share his insights that is happening within the University of Oregon. Over to you, Donnie.
Okay, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me. My name's Donnie Addison. I've been at the University of Oregon for about 6 years. Prior to that, I was at Auburn University for 10 years, where I graduated with a master's and undergraduate in environmental science. At the University of Oregon, our operations are mainly run by student employees. We typically, in a given term, we're employing around 20 to 25 student employees. Those students go inside academic and office buildings, as well as in some residential halls, and collect recycling and food scraps from floor to floor and centralize that back at our warehouse. For our glass, metal, and plastic streams of material, as well as our paper, we use a reusable bag, as shown in the pictures here. The two bags that have the kind of the red straps and clips are for the glass, metal, and plastic. Those bags are laundered when they get soiled or dirty or start to smell. The bag on the far right of the slide is for our paper stream. Those, if they don't get soiled, remain in the bins, and that's what our students use to collect material at each of our sites. They use like a large 95 or 65 gallon roll cart to kind of go around the building to collect both of these streams. We keep it separated. Our bottles and canned streams go back to our warehouse where we source separate those. We get a 10-cent deposit for all deposit containers through this or the state of Oregon's redemption program. Our bags for glass, metal, and plastic, when they get soiled, are taken back to our warehouse. The design of the bags allow us to launder those. And so as you can see in the middle picture, the bags kind of are open at two ends so that water in the laundry process can kind of clean and flush everything out. We use a Alsco, a local industrial launder, to wash those and bring them back. We do about 50 to 100 bags a week. Just to give you a scope, the bags themselves are custom designed by Baggett Systems. They're out of Oregon, and I'd be happy to supply anyone with that information if they're interested in looking more into this. The bags themselves cost about $24 each, to give you a sense of the cost. This program has been in place at the university well before I was a part of the university, and it's been something that we have managed for a long time. It works really well for our program. We work in conjunction with the custodial staff in buildings, but our custodial staff does not service these. And so I think that's a really important thing to think about, is our students manage this process from start to finish. And so we have kind of direct supervision over the process. And, you know, we aren't coordinating with other departments to kind of make this whole system work. And so it's kind of managed in-house from start to finish. I think that's probably it as far as just kind of the overview of our program. And be happy to answer any questions at the end.
Thank you, Donnie. We'll take the questions at the Q&A session. Meanwhile, if there is any specific questions, please feel free to drop down in the chat box. We'll discuss later. Just give me a second. Next is Sedgwick, Maine. I would request Mrs. Steve to share some insights about these tiny trash. Steve, over to you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Steve Sweeney. I'm with University of Southern Maine, Resource Recovery Supervisor. I've been here 11 years now. Looking at bags, the first thing we looked at was using the right bag. We have 3 campuses, and 10 years ago, we had different groups managing different aspects. Our Res Life department was purchasing 20,000 trash bags a year, and those were 2 mil thick bags. You folks probably realize bags there's 2 types of plastic bags. There's low density and high density. The low density is measured in mils, and these were low density bags. We worked with our supplier to find a more appropriate bag using a high density plastic, a 22 mic. And we found that 20,000 of those weighed 5 tons, whereas 20,000 2 mil thick bags weighed 8 tons. All bags end up in the trash, so ultimately we saved 3 tons of trash just by switching our bag. We also reduced our costs doing that. The other program that we looked at in our offices, having 3 campuses, we have close to 1,000 offices, and everyone had their own individual desk side trash can. We found that office workers generally produce 90–95% recyclable material. So we took everyone's trash cans away and gave them very small, tiny trash, which was very effective. The issue with the bags, we're paying about $3,500 a year for the small desk side trash bags to go into the trash, and those cans were not getting filled. So we were throwing away a lot of bags. Most of what we find for waste in offices is lunch material that folks bring from home, candy wrappers, gum wrappers, and whatnot. So we leave it up to them. We have centrally located waste stations that all the staff can utilize to dump their tiny trash. We still visit offices, but on a less frequent basis to pick up recycling materials. Interesting thing, the year that we implemented this program, our recycling rate went from 34% to 46%, because the tiny trash served as a very functional educational tool. That's what I got.
Thank you, Steve. We'll try to take the further.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention the liquid container there in the picture. I'm sorry. If I may take another moment. in looking at our waste, we found that a lot of students would purchase coffee and drinks and throw much of it away in the trash, which causes us to double bag our trash. We removed one trash station and installed a liquid station and put a label on it to dump your liquid and recycle your cup. Most of the coffee cups, paper cups, bottles were recyclable, but we're ending up in the trash because of the liquid in them. The trash we pay by the ton to get rid of, so that liquid was adding an extra 20,000 pounds a year to our waste and our waste cost. It costs nothing to dump liquids down the drain, as opposed to having it hauled off as waste. We found we did a much less double bagging of stations because we had much less leaking of bags.
Yeah, that's quite interesting to know about the liquid dumping collection. We'll continue about this with more questions in the later.
Sure.
I will request the UVA, Mr. Raleigh, to share about these, about the communication and the remaining initiatives that's happening within the UVA. Over to you, Raleigh.
So we've approached CO77 compliance, I guess, focusing on, I'm going to highlight a couple of things. Centralized trash, similar to what Steve was talking about there, and then also expanding our composting operation. So when we talk about our centralized trash conversion, we're basically eliminating personal trash can service in private offices and things like that, and all the liners that entails, many of which, like Steve pointed out, are pretty inefficient. They're not a high yield trash can. And so you eliminate a lot of liners by taking those private trash cans away. This was a pre-existing conversion process, but it was kind of going relatively slowly. We had completed about 40% of grounds prior to, I guess, by mid 2020, about 40% of grounds had been converted. But we saw this opportunity during the modified operations with lower occupancy in our buildings during COVID-19 pandemic to really accelerate that. And we followed a process. Standardization communication has been really important. So first we install the central collection stations like are pictured here. That one's actually right outside my office. Then we informally socialize the transition to all our building occupants, and we see who is the early adopters, who jumps on the process, the benefits and the impacts. We know that our custodial workers have relationships with a lot of our building occupants. So having them really talk through how it saves labor and is better for the environment is really impactful. And we also see the early adopters kind of motivate their peers. And really we see who's still using their personal trash cans during that period, and we can target them for special talking to. And then after that has all been taken care of, maybe a 3-week or so at least conversion process, we formally notify the building occupants through like a memo to the building coordinator. And I posted a kind of an example of that. It highlights what we're doing, what the change entails. And by the time they receive that memo, everyone's seen it. They're pretty much using the central stations. And so it's sort of a formality at that point for the most part. A couple hitches are VIPs. So we found kind of surprisingly that, or not surprisingly rather, that some of our high-ranking officials are just naturally handled differently, whether that means their administrative assistant is dumping their trash or our custodial teams are taking special care. So we have to make sure that when they hear about the program, they don't think that it's going to be more impactful than it actually is. We had to explain to the provost's office that actually half of grounds is already converted and you haven't heard any concerns. So don't worry too much about the pushback you're going to get from faculty and teams if you're worried about that. And then other things that we have to check in a little differently are auxiliaries. So athletics and prior to this, housing had their own custodial teams. We've gotten that in operations now, but those auxiliaries that aren't handled by our building services team, our ENG custodial team, take a little extra management and communication. And then the other thing that we've been focused on for compliance and for decreasing the bag usage is just increasing composting. Really using these co-located stations. There's a small one next to the microwave. You can see a food scrap container or receptacle. And it's much easier. It's not practical to, collect compost at every office every day, but it is very easy to do it at these central stations. So kind of merging these two initiatives together. We're expanding composting at events. So our sustainability team and others have really worked carefully with athletics and dining and other large venues and compost producers to make sure that they set their events up in a way that allows us to decrease contamination in our compost waste stream, but also even supports zero waste events. So Andrea and I this morning, we were congratulating or thanking the head of our safety team for an event that we both attended last week that was zero waste. All the utensils, all the cups were compostable, and that really, as a eater, as a participant of the event, it was almost unnoticed. It's just the only difference was the cup all went in the compost container, and the products are getting much better now, so that's possible. As long as we can get our procurement teams and our event coordinators and our participants trained up ahead of time, it'll really decrease the amount of our waste that's going into our landfill streams and increase our composting. So we really think that teaming these two initiatives together and taking advantage of the modified operations during COVID really makes a lot of sense for us, and it decreases the liners that we're using a lot.
Thank you, Raleigh. Well, it's quite good to know about the communication, the support from the top management too. We'll be going further, handing over to Kevin, and then I'll try to take the Q&A. Kevin, over to you to share about the GMU practices.
Sure. I'm Kevin Brim, Supervisor of Recycle Waste at George Mason University. I've been there 15 years and been running, managing, and supervising waste recycle for the last 6 years. And basically, we do single stream. Sorry, not single stream, but we sort out. We got different waste streams for our paper, plastic, and mixed paper. And when we started out, I didn't give I sent this picture in just to show how we used to line our cans with plastic bags, right? And I never really understood why we did that. They wanted to keep the cans clean or something. But so what I did is I eliminated the paper bags the plastic bags going into the paper. And all we do is keep the blue bags in the commingle. And we use these reusable vinyl bags to collect our paper. I have that same bag in both blue and I have it in white. And we put our mixed paper in the blue and of course our white paper in the white. Really doesn't matter, but I got special needs guys who service my building. I got about 25 special needs employees. And these guys go in and they service my buildings and they go in and do all the academic and student auxiliary buildings and bring the paper and cans out. And we also, with this executive order, of course, which was great because we were fighting the battle of trying to push this thing uphill. And once the governor came out with this executive order, everybody, of course, immediately is jumping on board, no problem. So we took this. So what it did was we went through procurement now, and we literally have redid the way we bring things on campus. So the way we order, so that is going to reduce our plastic situation by 70%, 80% just on the way we order. So we did that route. We got support at the top now. Everybody's all on board. I also went as far as to look for a new vendor. As you see there with my plastic liners, we actually recycle those as much as we can. So the ones that are not smelly or not too soiled, we keep those bags And we, at the end, I bail them and I give them to my vendor. They actually take them and recycle the trash bags. So that was great. I found Trex and I was going to work with Trex, which was a great company too. But the only problem I had with them was, by us being in North Virginia, we didn't have a place that would take, and us being a university and the volume of bags we put out, no grocery store wanted to take that many bags. And they wanted me to bring it out to them and they wouldn't give me a trailer. So I was able to find a vendor out of Richmond, International Paper. They actually take these plastic bags, and I'm able to now store the bags and bail them, and they will take them for me. I also started a program with shrink wrap, all that shrink wrap packaging that comes in. We have those Gaylord boxes stationed in our warehouse and any of our big delivery areas, and the buildings actually store all the shrink wrap, and we go around and my guys collect it up and we bail that and send it back as well. So, and the biggest thing we did too, with our Coke contract, our sustainability department, who I work hand in hand with, they were able to redo our Coke contract to where we're changing our Coke contract to be all aluminum cans and eliminate plastic being on our campus altogether. So that was a big, and you know, Coca-Cola, right? That was a big thing where they kind of pushed back, but they finally had no choice to where it didn't, the machines they have, luckily, they don't have to change because their machines still take aluminum cans. So by the next fall school year, we will have nothing but aluminum cans from Coca-Cola on our campus. And that's a big thing. And also too, we are doing composting, which has been a big thing for the last 5 years, especially us being in an urban area and not in these rural places where it's a little bit easier. Prince William County opened Free State Farms in 2020, which is a compost facility. And that's our push now to get away from trash. And with the executive order, we're changing everything over to compostable, and we're trying to reduce our trash, and we're doing more composting. We got a lot of composting pilots running right now on campus, and it seems to be going well. So yeah, that's pretty much, but as far as trash liners and everything, I'm really, I like the slide where I didn't know, I like the one with the other liners. I'm gonna look into that, but these are our reusable bags. They're nylon. And this is what we're going to, and again, trying to keep as many bags out of the landfill as possible. We found a vendor that will recycle them, so that was great. So that's where we are at George Mason right now.
Thank you, Kevin. Before I request or reach out on the chat questions, I have one question about the reusable bag as a part of this. As most of the, I believe all the universities buildings are very old, and where there might not be any lift, where the custodial will have a challenge from the fourth building to all the way and taking to the dumpster. So my question would be, any of the panel members, what kind of challenge or the support that your custodials is handling while using these reusable bags, carrying from the fourth floor or whatever the location, directly dumping into the dumpster? Are you using any carts or any kind of such support equipment to make sure that those are discarded in the dumpster properly and then washed and reused? So that might be can be answered by Donnie or Kevin or any one of them.
Yeah, I'll just say really quick, at my previous job at Auburn University, our custodial staff, which wasn't under my supervision, but I kind of worked in conjunction with the supervisor. They weren't able to, I guess, fully participate in our program. At the University of Oregon, our custodial staff only collects garbage, and they do use single-use plastic bags for our recycling. For primarily our glass, aluminum, plastic, and paper, we use a 65-gallon Toter brand cart with front swivel casters, and so you don't have to lean it back. It's easily pushable through a building. It has a locking caster on the front, so these things don't roll away from you. And we use those to go site by site, floor to floor. In the event we have a building without an elevator, we don't use those carts. They're not safe to move fully loaded up and down stairwells, and so we actually do use our smaller bags to kind of bring material downstairs in small quantities. So that's kind of how we do it at the university.
Thank you.
And,
That is very helpful. I've seen a couple of the attendees over here. I've shooted some questions in the chat box. I'll try to go through this, but please feel free to unmute yourself and please feel free to directly shoot a question to the referring panel member if you would like to. Before I read the chat questions, would like to anyone kickstart with the questions by unmuting yourself?
Anusha, could I start this off, because I've been
Yes.
monitoring some of the questions, and so I'll go back to some of the first ones, and these are for Donnie. So Donnie, could you tell us, do you pay your students for the work, and how does the program work in the summer when students aren't around?
Yes, we do pay our students. Right now, we're paying our students $13.25 an hour. Our volumes on campus across the board decrease over the summer, as well as our student staff, but we do have a smaller crew of students that essentially conduct the same operations over the summer in the buildings that are opening and functioning. So we do operate year round.
Thanks, Donnie. And one more, is there a reason that the facilities management office doesn't manage recycling?
Yeah, so our custodial staff at the University of Oregon do not collect recycling in buildings. That is done by our student staff, and our custodial staff is mainly focused on the garbage. And so a lot of the pictures you saw from Olin and Kevin's slides, you have, landfill or trash, paper in a glass, metal, and plastic container. We collect all of the kind of the recycling portions, the paper and the glass, metal, plastic. The landfill is actually collected by our custodial staff. And so two separate groups servicing kind of the same station. It works for us. It's kind of a unique situation. A lot of times you just have the custodial staff servicing all three. Our student staff, like I said, we manage directly. And so we're able to control that system and kind of work with them very directly to make sure that we have good participation and just good communication when issues pop up. So I think, it's a unique situation, but it works for us.
Awesome, thank you. Looks like we had a couple for Steve. I think this was in regards to the liquids. Have you found opening to help with the placement? And this might have been a question from Kevin, if you wanted to expand upon that question.
The liquids, there's a couple of questions there. Not sure what the opening is referring to. Oh, the Rubbermaid stations that we're using come with different plates depending on what you want. And so all our signs in our stations have circles for bottles and triangle, Saturn shapes for recycling, and then squares for trash. But we had a lot of these circular ones that fit a funnel very nicely in them. Originally, we used fryer oil jugs to collect our liquids. We would get them from the food service vendor, and they are recyclable, but we would use them for a while until they became too nasty, and then we would throw them out. We since switched our oil program so they pump the oil in, recirculate, and pump it back out, so we're not purchasing it in jugs. So we use the floor cleaning 5-gallon pails, and it's actually worked out better. As far as the emptying of that, The custodial staff is responsible for that. And when they squawk about how much time it takes to walk a pail down to the closet and dump it and put a little bit of cleaner in it, we remind them that they don't have to clean the carpets this year because we don't have coffee spills.
Thanks, Steve. I think that answers the second question, which was, is the liquid collection bin cleaned on a regular basis?
Yes, and so the custodians are responsible for that, but then I have a team of 3 people that from time to time will go around and check every one of them, and if something needs replacing, every once in a while your funnels crack or something. This is a cool system. The funnels are like $4 a piece, and then there's a piece of PVC pipe which is dirt cheap to buy. So the cost of those stations is very minimal.
All right, thank you. Over to Kevin, you have a couple questions. What's the cost for your nylon reusable bags?
So my bags are definitely not as cheap as Donnie's bags. I believe that was who had those for $26. Mine's run about $55 a bag.
And Kevin, could you talk more about your composting pilots and programs?
So yeah, we do back of the house composting. We have Sodexo, who's our food provider vendor on campus. And we work with Compost Crew. And basically what we do is we got these 35-gallon bins set up in the back of the house. And it goes through the scrap, you know, the scraps and stuff. And it's, can't think of the name of the machine right now. But basically we have it picked up 3 days a week. We also do, in one of our new buildings, we are piloting a recycle station where everybody comes in. We got compostable bags in there. We're trying that out to see if, you know, with food and lunches and stuff, if people will place it right in there. We collect that and monitor it every week. So, I mean, we also do coffee grinds. We do coffee grinds from our Starbucks. We're working on a pilot to start collecting those from all our coffee stations, coffee places, Einstein and stuff like that. So we're steadily trying to increase to more across the university, but we're growing our compost program where we want to get to start doing it in-house and doing our own hauling. That's the end game for us, is to do our own hauling of composting and getting away from trash.
Thanks, Kevin. I think that leads us into our next question, which was from someone to the whole set of panelists. For any of the schools that mentioned composting facilities near them that they're using, could the composting facility handle all of your compostable waste?
So I know for us here at George Mason, Free State Farm, they just sent us information on registering our trucks. And we also asked our vendor our contractor to take, that we would hope that our compost would go there, but they are more than ready to set up and say that they can accept our volume of composting from us.
Yeah, and similarly, we work with a vendor here in Central Virginia called Black Bear Composting, and they have indicated, we checked in with them because when we were trying to expand out our paper towel composting, we were curious what their appetite for that was, and they said that they would take anything that we could give them for the foreseeable future, which is cool. I think that similar to what Kevin was saying, its costs would be impacted dramatically if we can figure out a way to make the delivery, the carrying more efficient and load up here before we take a trip out. Or turn it over to them. So those are things that we've been looking into a little bit.
Yeah, I'll say, oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. USM, the last year before COVID really hit, we composted 112 tons of material. We have 3 vendors in the local area, so we go out to bid. We're using Garbage to Garden. They charge us $60 a ton. versus the $79.50 we pay for our waste at the waste facility. Most of our stuff is back of house because it's easier to control. The few times I've tried to do public composting, you end up with there's always one person in the crowd that's going to throw garbage in your food bin, and then it's contaminated. So we do kind of we have a volunteer basis. So if we have a floor in a dorm that wants to compost as a group, then we'll set them up. If we have an office building that wants to compost as a group, we'll set them up, but we don't do blanket public composting.
Just one person to contaminate, Steve. We saw a couple years ago the composters in the state of Oregon and really most of the West Coast, or at least Oregon and Washington, got together and just banned any compostable item, any serviceware, bowls, plates, forks, spoons, those types of things. We did partner with our dining services, and we had a front of the house or post-consumer compost collection for several years. We would get every single bag from every dining hall, and our student staff would sort through and pull out every little bit of plastic and any contamination, wrappers, fortune cookie wrappers, before we dumped it into our large container and it was hauled. So our vendor, Rexius, doesn't take any compostable serviceware. They only want food scraps. And so we had to pretty much get rid of our front of the house, our post-consumer collection. In that process, our dining services invested in durable serviceware. The problem was that the way our dining venues are set up is they're really modeled for a grab and go system. They're not really set up for grabbing your tray or grabbing a bowl or plate and sitting down and having a good meal and then returning that to a dishwashing station. So pretty much all of our venues have been designed and are continuing to be designed for grab and go. So when we saw dining introduce reusable serviceware into the facility, from a sustainability perspective, it was a win across the board because compostable items don't add value to a composting system. They just help divert that material from a landfill to a compost. So our students were taking the reusable bowls and plates and forks and taking them to class or taking them back to their residential hall, and that all of a sudden dining wasn't getting their reusable stuff back, and then COVID hit. So since COVID hit, our dining services completely pivoted to a Grubhub model. So now students can get online, order meals. It's all packaged and still compostable serviceware. So they went back to that. And we have a real challenge right now at the university with our dining services and the waste stream, because we're seeing more waste than ever. And it's really based upon, I think, precautions from dining services because of COVID. And our waste stream has tripled in those venues. And there's not really any discussion or talk right now. Our term just started in October, so we're just kind of scrambling. Our dining staff in particular is running at about a third staffing. So I just saw our directing of dining services last week bussing garbage out of a dining hall, which was the first time I'd ever seen him not in a coat and tie working on the floor. So we have a lot of challenges right now from a staffing perspective. I think once that's resolved and we have our facility staffed, the next challenge is going to be where are we going with reusable serviceware? Because I think that for us is going to be the answer for reducing waste.
Thank you all. There's one more question that I found in the chat, and then after that, that's it for the ones that I've seen dropped in. This one's to Steve. Does your liquid system have a reverse valve that keeps the containers from overflowing when full? If full, is there some type of indicator to tell people not to dump in any more liquid?
Good question. They never get full. The jugs are 5-gallon jugs. I think I've only seen one location that, every third day it'll get 3/4 full, but you don't want to let it sit there that long. You're going to have flies. so the liquid stations have to be checked every other day. When we started the program, we wanted to get a feel for how effective it was. And so I had a student go around to every container and check how many gallons a day we were collecting. And it was between 7 and 49 gallons a day that we were collecting. But to the point, you don't want them to get full. It's just too much. It's going to be smelly by then. What works is the way the funnel sits inside the PVC pipe is it kind of prevents flies from getting in and out. If you've got flies and it's been sitting there too long.
Thanks, Steve. We have another one. We have a request for all of our panelists if they could let us know what their current recycling rates are as a benchmark.
So I think we're a little over 35%, according to my friends call out Jesse in sustainability.
Yeah, George Mason and my sustainability staff is on. They probably could give you better numbers than me, actually, but I think we're about the same, 30%.
Yeah, at the University of Oregon, again, you know, are we comparing apples to apples, oranges to apples? We factor in yard debris, that material as well in our diversion rates and construction debris. So, you know, with that factored in, we're a little over 50%.
USM as of this morning was 50.17%, and that's with construction debris, yard waste.
All right, thank you all. That's it for the questions in the chat, and I'll hand it back to Anusha or anyone else who wants to unmute and ask away.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Calendar, for taking care of that. And is there any other questions that which are not covered in the chat or would like to discuss further? Please free to unmute yourself and directly shoot the questions to the panel members.
So this is more of just my own education, but I always dump out the remainder of my soda from Chipotle in the water fountain before I throw it in the landfill, because I have been, and Jesse, I can see you cringing, but my understanding is that is not a recyclable container because it is lined. Is that accurate, or am I off base and need to change my personal habits?
What type of container was that?
Just a to-go soda cup. So like a large fast food soda cup.
So if you scratch the inside of it with your fingernail, if it's wax coated, you'll get wax on your fingernail. If it's not, then it's a special process they use to roll the paper that hardens the surface so it doesn't absorb liquids. The cool thing is that I used to work for a recycling facility that recycled paper, so I have a good insight coming into this job.
Perfect. I'll change my bin.
So those are recyclable. If you don't scratch off some wax, then it's a recyclable cup.
Yeah, I'll just add to that that recycling industries and systems across the country differ from, you know, community to community, state to state. You know, we have big, bold yellow signs on all our bins saying no cups, primarily because our vendors don't take it. Is it recyclable? To your point, Steve? Yeah, probably so. You know, we actually have Santa Pack, who's our garbage, one of our garbage haulers, approached us recently, and Georgia Pacific is targeting, paper company, targeting venues, universities in our area to get that material, because they are able to recycle it. And that's been a new occurrence with us. They're actually wanting our garbage. They have a proprietary system that will sift through and extract out paper and other materials. And I can tell you that in Oregon, as green as our school colors are, there is a tremendous amount of recycling still entering our landfill every day. And there is a tremendous amount of consumption on behalf of our residents on campus. It's primarily Amazon Prime consumption. And it's a real big problem. And, you know, I like the idea of Georgia Pacific being able to screen through stuff. They won't let me come and see their process, but just the fact that somebody's wanting to go through and comb through our garbage to extrapolate primarily fiber products is, I guess, somewhat of a glimmer of hope when it comes to, you know, our local systems.
We've had an additional couple questions in the chat. And this is to all panelists, have you written any standard operating procedures for zero waste stations and collections? And if so, how do you incorporate SOPs within staff trainings? That is to everyone.
So our sustainability team here at UVA has definitely created a whole training for event organizers that really does a good job of going through how to host a sustainable and I guess zero waste event, and defer to more details, but I'm sure we'd be glad to share what's been put together.
Yeah, I'd say at the University of Oregon, we're kind of a mess when it comes to operating procedures. Our custodial staff, and sometimes our staff will, more like our custodial staff will cater to some buildings more than others. But I think in some of the panelists, Steve, particularly with taking away garbage cans out of the office space, I truly think that is the path forward, because our custodial staff is way understaffed. And after COVID, we're still trying to staff up, and we can't clean buildings per APA standards like we want to. And so it is a struggle, and centralizing waste is by far the way we need to go. And we have had some success, primarily from building design standpoint. When we're building a new building, if we can work with the occupants and the architects to design the system literally from floor to floor and make sure we have capacity on the outside of the building, that is our way to go. Because when those office occupants inherit that new building and that system is in writing and they've been shared and their management and leadership has been part of the design process, it really tends to work a lot better than kind of coming in and trying to change people's behaviors, you know, in existing spaces.
To your point, the biggest savings we had with that was the labor. We have 3 campuses, and on our Portland campus, we had 30 custodians that spent the first hour of their day just going office to office collecting trash. 30 hours is a substantial amount of time that can be better used for other activities. We do have a standard operating procedure. We have a waste minimization policy that states no standalone trash cans, but I'm forever chasing around, you know, because the custodians don't. You have to almost reinvent your program every day, or reestablish your program every day. We set our stations up, recycling is on the left and trash on the right, because in this country we read from left to right, so you subconsciously will scan, and we want you to see the recycling option first. We have colors, you know, yellow for bottles, blue for recycling, gray for trash, and our signage all reflects that. But when new custodians come on, they're not doing the training, and so I'm continually running behind people correcting things.
Here, George
The
Mason.
training's a really key point. Oh, sorry there. I was just going to say that if the recycling team outside the building collects things and you already see contamination, it's hard for them to eliminate that at their position. But if our custodial teams who are taking the food scrap bag out of the individual station, if they notice that there's contamination in there and they can talk to the folks in that area that are generating that, it really eliminates the downstream effects of that contamination. I mean, just to use an example, if everybody, it's not worse, you just throw it in the trash, that one bag. But the key really is addressing the behavior that ruined that one bag instead of just letting it continue.
Yeah, and I was going to add for George Mason, actually, that SOP, my sustainability, we just had that conversation last week, and with the executive order and everything that they're doing to with getting us a waste characterization study and revamping our entire program, we just had that conversation about developing SOPs for our waste recycles, my staff.
Thank you all. There's an additional question. Have you incorporated zero waste changes within your campus design standards? And this is for the whole panel.
So all our buildings that are new, our new buildings are created with a centralized trash model. It's basically just been how we've started building buildings and setting them up, which has really helped with the it's not something we're just forcing on the old buildings, right? This is the new way to go. And I think that's a good way to show that and get people excited.
Yeah, we're having those discussions, and we have standards within our design kind of design standards, larger design standards for zero waste and setting up that infrastructure both inside the building and outside the building. But there are everyday challenges. We just built a big, nice, fancy residential hall with the dining facility, and we have 10 rear load dumpsters in the back of the house, and they overflow 7 days a week, and our services cannot keep up with the volume. We wanted compactors. They value engineered the compactors out of the design. Luckily, I was able to get them to run electrical for future compactors, and within 2 weeks of opening this facility, the dining directors are approaching me saying we need compactors. So even when you have design standards, if the project can't afford, infrastructure and things like that, unfortunately, I'm finding at Oregon that we have to make cuts and we have to make changes in infrastructure, both inside and outside, depending on the funding of the project.
And for us at George Mason, my sustainability department is just the same. They are currently revamping and reworking our aesthetics and developing a team. They have a team that's working on resetting up both inside the interior and exterior of our buildings with our recycle stations. And we're doing new signage and everything to make everything kind of uniform across the campus, so the kids can, what they see in one building, they'll see it at any other building that they go to. And also we have 3 other, we do Prince William County, Arlington County, Front Royal. We got satellite campuses as well. So we try to keep everything uniform. If you go to one campus, we want you to see the same thing. Until you get to those executive areas, they don't want our same, they want a different look. So.
All right, if there's nothing to add to that one, this one goes to Donnie, I believe. Could you provide a 10,000-foot overview of how you manage the construction site projects when you refer to what's included in your recycling? The person who asked is assuming that you perhaps write something into the contract that requires recycling be tracked, but wanted a little more information on that.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of the times we'll design to lead standards, the U.S. Green Building Council standards, and our construction contracts they factor that just kind of general language in there that they're supposed to divert a certain percentage of the materials and have collection within the site for both demo, construction, and obviously once the building's built, the infrastructure to manage it moving forward. I do not manage that. That's managed by our design team and the project manager on the facility side that's over that project. They collect the data and submit that to our Office of Sustainability, which is actually separate from the office I manage. And so we track it. should we have boots on the ground monitoring this? Yes. Are the numbers completely accurate? Probably not, but they do the best they can to follow those guidelines that we have in our design standards, and that's how we do it at the university.
Thanks, Donnie. So that's it for the questions that I see in the chat. I will point out that Jesse from UVA dropped a couple links in there earlier on. So if you didn't get a chance to click on those, Anush and I will try to snag those for you guys as well. But wanted to highlight that, and that Amber just put some additional information in the chat on rare.org about recycling research. And I think I'm going to hand it back to you, Anusha.
Yeah, thank you so much. Keeping this the time constraint in mind and another 2 minutes in mind, is there any other wrap-up questions still that need to be addressed, giving time into considerations? Any other questions? I'll see. This looks good. So I appreciate it, all the panel members. Thank you, Donnie, for able to wrap up and to join into this. And Ronald and Steve and Kevin, I hope this will be a really valuable takeout. And this is a recorded version, so I will make sure that we'll share this to the peer members through the VASHE. And looking forward to know what are the other best practices that can be shared within this. And if there is any other questions in related to this, please free to directly reach out to me so that I can forward those questions directly to the panel members and network with them. Thank you all. Thank you all for making this a good session. Hope this turned out well. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you.